a lot of the times the social space is trying to chase the virality and lifestyle and something that to me just feels like a disconnect to like, so what is it that you're actually selling and claiming? And what is the problem that you're solving for your customer? That for us, they have to be completely connected and intertwined.
Explore the minds and marketing strategies behind today's winning brands and businesses. Tap into the power of the creator economy with Earned by Creator IQ.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Earned. I'm so excited today to have Alisa Metzger, co-founder of INNBEAUTY Project, with us on the podcast. Thanks for being here.
Hi, Britt. I'm also very excited to be here.
Where are you calling in from?
I'm calling in from South Florida, which is where I live, and our company, fun fact, is fully remote. We were COVID babies, so we started just before COVID, and we had to go remote for a long time, and we just continued that way.
You know what? I think that's actually a great place to start. So, INNBEAUTY Project is the company that you started. I want to get into the founding story, what led you there, but you have a very rich history and resume in beauty, L'Oréal, La Prairie. Start us back further than the founding of INNBEAUTY. Where did you begin in beauty and what was your journey like there?
My beauty career started at L'Oreal, and I think just like a lot of 20 somethings that graduated college, you don't know what you want to do, but you know kind of where your passions lie and where your heart starts to pitter patter faster. And for me, that was the beauty industry. And throughout my career, which is, almost 20 years at this point in the beauty industry, I've worked at big companies like L'Oreal and Procter and Gamble, and La Prairie is under Beiersdorf Group. So that's another big company, some smaller companies that are private equity backed, always on the marketing side of things. And I think one of the most incredible things about the marketing function is that you really can't define it. It is so dynamic, it's ever evolving. If you think about marketing 10 years ago versus what it is now, and ultimately what a marketer does is they take a product or a service and they market it, they make it desirable to the customer and the audience out there. And so I remember back in the day, it was the days of what's your print plan? And, are you going to do something and spend for a back cover, inside cover? And so those days are over. Now it's all about creators and social and how do you get that share of voice and get people talking about your brand and buzzing about your brand. And that's what I love about the marketing discipline. It's just how creative and analytical it is and how dynamic it is.
Dynamic, always changing, and exhausting.
It is quite exhausting. There is no end goal. You start every day with 0, right? You start every day and you got to build it up and you have to have customers buying your products, customers talking about your products, creators talking about your products. You got to start the buzz from a baseline and keep building it every day. However, I love the challenge. I love what I do and I love our brand and our products and what we stand for. So it is truly a labor of love.
Well, and it sounds like that build mentality and the energy you get from that has probably really served you well as a founder. So let's flash forward 2019, although I'm imagining the idea started a little bit before 2019. How did conversations around what ended up being INNBEAUTY Project start?
I would say probably just, thinking back from where we sit today, it was probably something that has been within me and has been an idea for much longer than what it truly seems like. And so my business partner, co-founder, Jen Shane, and I were both working at a beautiful skincare company called Tula. And Tula is a probiotics-based skincare company that was really all about the microbiome and skin barrier. I would say very much before its time. We were early employees at Tula, and it was a pretty small startup, private equity backed. And we were really tasked with, create this concept into a brand that customers all over globally are going to love. And so I was the head of marketing, Jen was product development, and we worked so well together. We're incredibly symbiotic because we have such different disciplines, yet very similar visions. We were looking at the skincare landscape, and we both have a lot of passion for skincare for obvious reasons. You can put as much makeup on as you want, and you can't hide bad skin. And skincare is so emotional. It is so scientific. It's extremely personal, it's solution driven. And so, like, there's just so much in there where makeup and fragrance tend to be a lot more creative and trend driven. And so we were really looking closely at the skincare landscape and thinking about how do we develop and grow Tula. And we noticed a couple of things missing. It was a big foray into clean, and we saw iconic brands like Drunk Elephant and Herbivore Botanicals and Beauty Counter really scream clean. And at the same time, the products were really expensive. So you're talking 70, 80, $90 per product. When you think of your average skin routine, you're talking two, three, $400 for an entire skin routine. The average US salary is under $45,000. It's a no-go for most consumers out there, especially, coming out of the New York, LA bubble. So while clean was very much at the forefront of the conversation, we know a woman comes back to a skincare item again and again and again because it solves a skin concern. It has to be efficacious, it has to be high quality, it has to deliver on the promise. Past a certain age, we no longer have perfect skin. We see the effects of stress, lifestyle, gravity, aging, all of that, children, work, careers, all of those variables.
Yes,
And
we
so
feel that deeply.
we feel it deeply. We need products that deliver. And so Jen and I just, kept saying, like, what if a product was really priced at a value, not cheap, but at a value? Yes, it had all the underlying foundations of clean, but it was really highly efficacious and it had all of these different ingredients. And so we kept on saying, like, what if, what if? And so we imagined this brand that was a true white space opportunity in skincare. And we just couldn't put the idea down. And at one point we said, we owe it to ourselves to try this. I always say at this point, I'm 43. I'm 40 with a plan, not 25 with a dream. That's something that I'm very confident about. I think we've had the playbook, we've had our successes, our failures. We've worked for so many different companies, and Jen comes from a product development background, and she's worked at beautiful brands like Tarte and Tatcha and Bare Minerals, and has worked on, some of the most iconic beauty products out there. And so we felt so confident as far as our experience, our network, our background, our playbooks, that we ultimately just quit our jobs and started working on In Beauty. And November 2019 is when the brand launched. And then I think, what was it? It was mid-February that the world shut down.
Yeah, not so long after that. The positioning of the company and product is really interesting because you really are trying to kind of create rare air, right? It's efficacious but affordable, it's clean, it's vegan, right? It's all of these things combined. How difficult was that in terms of bringing the actual product to market and really hitting on all of those pillars that you committed to in your vision?
I'd say it's very difficult. That's why a lot of people shy away from it and companies don't do it. So I always say, like, if it's easy, everybody would do it and it would just be commonplace. And Jen and I are always up for the challenge. And I am so fortunate to have a business partner and a kind of like my work wife and partner in crime in Jen. She is such a talent, such a master of product development. She has such a passion for it and a talent and a skill set. And she loves finding new ingredients, tried and true ingredients, and thinking about how they combine together to solve a skin concern holistically. She always says one, two, three ingredients just don't cut it. You really have to think about this symphony of all these different ingredients working on different layers of the skin and different mechanisms within the skin. Like, she is a science nerd. And so she knew from the very beginning that she was never going to put out a formula that didn't break boundaries of what topical skincare can do. And from a brand perspective, we always think about the customer and what you mentioned. There are all these different elements that she's looking for in her skin routine, beauty routine. And we always said, we're not going to put anything out there if there's a compromise. We don't want to compromise. The price has to be right. It has to be affordable is difficult. It's a relative term. What's affordable to you may not be affordable to me, et cetera. And so we just always have to price things at a value where if she's looking outside of our brand, whether it be the professional channel, the Sephora retail channel, whatever it is, it has to be priced a lot better and value driven when it comes to that. Clean is table stakes. There, of course, like, we formulate to the highest level of clean without making it in our kitchen is always my caveat, because that is also unsafe in a lot of times. And we knew, like, it's going to be a difficult road. I don't think you ever know how difficult and challenging it's going to be. The highs are high, the lows are low, but we're up for the challenge. And we see that challenge every day. Every day there's just new things that pop up, whether they're scientific, new data when it comes to skin and clean, and new laws and FDA regulations and all of that. Being a global brand is another set of challenges as well.
Yes. So I think the really interesting thing there is how related, like interrelated, your process is with your story and your storytelling. So you spend 100K in clinical testing for every product that you put out, which is not standard, correct?
It's absolutely not standard. And so when we speak of, we want to be the highest performing and known as the highest performing skincare brand on the market, not within our distribution channel, on the market, period. How do we prove that, especially being at the price point that we're at? For Years, generations, the beauty industry and the luxury industry has spent billions of dollars telling every customer out there, if you want something quality and you want something efficacious, you have to pay up. So we need to change people's mindsets. And the only way we can do it is in the data, is in our scientific clinical testing. So what most companies do, even bigger companies, is they do something called a perception study. They get a bunch of people in a room and they use the products over a period of time or whatever the protocol is. And then they ask you, how do you feel about your skin? And so what you get is a personal statement saying, my skin looks better, feels better, looks firmer, whatever it is. What we do is third party independent clinicals in a third party lab. So the people that are trying the product don't know what the brand is. They don't know exactly what they're being tested for and what's happening in terms of like what they're looking for, the clinical graders and the actual machine measurements. And so it's completely unbiased. It is as scientific and data driven as you can be. So that's what we invest in. And it's a lot more expensive. That's why a lot of brands don't do it. And where you have a choice, do you spend $100,000 in customer acquisition or marketing, or do you spend $100,000 in this clinical testing? Most brands choose the former. And we know that we've got a lot to prove. And that's also how we stand out. Skincare is hard. Skincare is really hard. And this is really our point of difference. And we're trying to be louder and louder about it because I know a lot of customers also don't quite understand the nuance and the difference. And I think a lot of even big heritage brands are relying on this misunderstanding of, oh, 98% is better than 35%. Well, it really depends on what their measurements are. It's not apples to apples.
Yep. Well, and that's one way getting into kind of your corner of the universe. Like as you think about the brand, that how you kind of package and story tell around the brand products, right? Bring those to your customers. That's been a huge piece of the role of creators for you, right? Is really unlocking that efficacy story and helping to translate so much of what differentiates your product to consumers who really need that storytelling or translation in a way that is relevant to their lives, right? Like those connection points. So I'd love to hear how you think about creators and how you work with them as a brand.
So when we think about our brand and the social space, I think where I see a lot of disconnect, and especially in the last couple of years, is there's the brand and the product that you're selling, whether it's on your online store or on shelves, and it's typically a product, whether it's a moisturizer, an eye cream, or whatever it is, a pimple serum. And then there's the way you show up on social. And when I compare the two, a lot of the times the social space is trying to chase the virality and lifestyle and something that to me just feels like a disconnect to like, so what is it that you're actually selling and claiming and what is the problem that you're solving for your customer? That for us they have to be completely connected and intertwined. We know our brand on our social organic channels and every channel where we show up as ourselves has to be all about education, skin education, ingredient education for us to explain to you what this product does, why is it better, how is it going to solve your problem, your skin concern, or your skin goal. And then the way we use our creators too is if we have something like Extreme Cream, which has been our runaway hit. I hate to call it viral because it really wasn't us chasing virality. I think what it is a powerhouse moisturizer that is at an unbeatable value with just the most incredible, remarkable results across different generations and skin types. And we need to make sure that the creators we work with that are talking about extreme cream, if we're doing the education piece, that they're doing the here's my skin concern, here's how I incorporate it into my routine, here's how it's changed my life, here's how it's giving me confidence, here's how it makes me feel. And so a little bit more of that emotional piece, the lifestyle piece, but without completely, coming out of left field. And so the creators we work with, we are, I always say, multi-generational. I've never walked into a store and said, "Hi, I'm in my early 40s. What do you have for me?" In any category, whether it be fashion, shoes, accessories, makeup, skincare, it's here's what I need. I need a little black dress. I need a moisturizer that does this. I need a foundation that does this. It's never been about my age. So we say it's not really about an age group, it's about your skin concern or your skin goal. And so we make sure that the creators we work with represent all the different skin concerns and goals. So if we're selling a firming lifting moisturizer, we better work with some creators that are actually having firming lifting concerns that they can really organically, naturally talk about that. So we have wonderful partners like Caroline Baudino that's been so vocal about her age. She's not shy talking about how she's in her 50s. She's having her best era ever. She's super confident. And when she says she's had to delay her Botox and her skin has never looked better, more firm and more plump and more youthful, we believe her because she's the right age group. And where I see a lot of brands, again, it's that disconnect where you have that proposition, but then the creator happens to be in her early 20s. And so you're like, I don't believe her.
Yeah. So I love this multi-generational approach. And I do think there's something really interesting there, especially just in terms of where we are and the evolution of social media, the role of creators. We, and myself included, I'm also in my early 40s. Like, we grew up on this. And so the creators that we follow represent our lives. And my life is probably pretty different than, a 21-year-old, even though sometimes I like to forget my own age. And so I do think there's this maturation of the space that is often overlooked. There are amazing creators out there that represent all walks of life, all age groups, all demographics. And I do think one of the things we've really been talking to customers about is when you think about kind of suitability, it really is around that like values connection. And for you, it's really about that kind of efficacy story. What problem are
Mhm.
you trying to solve? How can we help you do it? And it's those connection points, other than those like traditional demographics, that really resonate today and takes you in really interesting places, I think, with this strategy around who you can work with and why.
Absolutely. I also think that it's really difficult to break through. It's a very saturated space. And if you want to break through, you have to do something different. Because, like, if you don't change something, nothing will change. And that's always been our approach. We're not afraid of working with a demographic of creators that may have been forgotten in prior generations and by other brands and communities. And so those have been our most successful partnerships. And that's where we've broken through. Also, when you think of who you're working with, it's not just the creator in their isolation, it's their community. You're also working with, and you're also kind of echoing everything to their community. And so, if the community you're ultimately trying to hit isn't your creators community, then that's where your message, your product, or your marketing tactics and your ROI is going to fall flat. And so for us, again, it's women that may have not been spoken to in the right way. And when you think of Erica Taylor's another creator that is in the mature segment, her community represents her. Are there older and younger members of her community? Absolutely. But I think like that's really important where if you're a brand and you're selling something and you're hoping that your demographic is millennial, older millennial, whatever it is, that's where the data tells you is who your customer is. But the creators you work with are a lot younger. Well, that's their community. So are you really talking to the right people?
Yep, absolutely. What are three kind of non-negotiables when thinking through a retailer partnership or strategy? Like, what would you offer up as advice for like questions for yourself to answer or considerations for other brands who are kind of in that motion right now?
Three. So I'd say first and foremost, you as the brand really need to understand how do you occupy a white space within their portfolio. So if you're skincare, fragrance, hair care, apparel, fashion, whatever it is, are you just like five other brands that they have, whether it's price point, benefit, concern, whatever attribute you're looking at, or is there something definingly different that you offer to their customer? So I think that's important. You have to really understand what is your distinction, what is your point of difference, what is the white space you're occupying. Then I think you really need to be in lockstep. The expectations of your retail partner and your expectations for the brand, for the product, for what it is that you're building have to be aligned. Because if they're thinking you're one thing and you're behind the scenes thinking you're something else, and you're going in a different direction, that's ultimately not going to work. And then I'd say like be open to feedback. And this brings me to one of the biggest differences in my mindset as a marketer is the power of agility and the power to pivot and to tweak and change and adjust with your retail partners' feedback, with your audience, with the landscape, with innovation, with trends, with society are so critical. And if you're very stuck in your ways and you're saying, no, like the brand that I am today is going to be the brand that I am going to be 10 years from now, 20 years from now, and I don't want to hear feedback. I know everything. And that's that. I just think that's a very closed minded view because the world changes so fast. And so if your retailer saying, here's the word on the street, here's what everybody else is thinking about, here's some feedback for you, you have to keep that in mind and you have to use that information to help inform your future, whether it's your product pipeline, your marketing strategy, your packaging, your website copy, everything. And so be open to it.
Can you give us an example of when you pivoted based on feedback?
When we first launched the brand, we were very intentional. We had bright, bold packaging. We wanted to use color very intentionally and strategically because we wanted to stand out online, on social, and we wanted to stand out on shelf. And so, also at the time, there was a sea of millennial pinks and beiges and grays and blacks and all of these, monotone, really simple packages. And ultimately, customers were having trouble really deciphering one thing from the other. And so we knew we wanted to be different. And kind of our thought process, like throughout our whole business, we want to do something very different and disruptive, not for the sake of it, but in a strategic sense. I think because of that, and then the value driven, attractive, low price point, we're very much coined like the next Gen Z skincare brand. And as we grew and evolved and as we understood like who are the customers that we're acquiring, and in the beginning they were younger, I'd say they were Gen Z, younger millennial. And as our brand matured and as our product portfolio grew, and as Jen was really kind of like, doing her best at developing the products with the formulas and the science-driven ingredients that she's always dreamed of, we saw that younger customers bringing her mom to the brand. And then the grandma joined in, and we had this multi generational customer base that was just organically, authentically coming. And they said, the brand may not look like it's for me, but the products really deliver. And that's what it's all about. And slowly but surely, we were listening. We were saying, okay, well, why don't we not make it so that we don't look like we're for everyone? And why don't we make these little tweaks and changes, whether it's in the product packaging and the way we phrase things and the way we talk to her, in our copy, just in the overall aesthetic, to make sure that we're not isolating anyone. So if a woman who is in her 40s, 50s, 60s, whatever it is, comes up to our end cap at Sephora, she doesn't feel like, oh, it's just for my teenage daughter. No, it's actually not. Yes, there's products for your teenage daughter that can absolutely be safe and beneficial, but the products are also for you too. And I think that pivot and that ability to say we can pivot and change, and the colors we started with and the tone of voice we started with and our approach to marketing and creators that we started with don't have to be the same and consistent year after year after year. Let's listen to the audience, listen to the landscape, really understand who's buying high performance skincare. That was critical for us. Now, I'm super proud to say we have women, in their 80s writing in saying, I bought extreme cream. Is this legal? Like my face has never looked better.
I love to hear that. And thank you so much for sharing. I think that is really hard for a brand. And as a marketer, I can speak from personal experience. Like my job, I think, is storytelling. And so it's very easy to just be out telling your story without really truly understanding how it's like meeting the people you're telling the story to in the first place. Okay. So where is the company today?
So it's so funny because Jen and I get asked all the time, like, what's your goal for INNBEAUTY? Like, what's your hope and dream? And I'm not sure if they're looking for a revenue number or what it is that they're looking for. Us, it's we are building a company that is here to last. We want to be a heritage brand. We don't want to be a flash in the pan. That is not how we're building on a day-to-day level, on a product level, on a distribution level. We want to be here 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years from now. We want 100 years from now people to be, using INNBEAUTY. I'm not sure if the same product portfolio will be around, but we want to be around for the long haul. And for me, it's always been we want to be a household name. We want to be one of those brands that make people feel comfortable, make people feel like this delivers, it performs, it's reliable, it's trustworthy. Where we are today, just from a business distribution perspective, is we are in every single Sephora in the US, as well as Sephora and Kohl's, and we're widening and expanding that network as well. We launched our very first market outside of North America. So we're in Sephora Canada as well, but we recently, just this past July, launched Sephora UK, which is like a whole whirlwind experience. And that's also something that you need to realize there's a whole world outside of North America. And how do you market and how do you talk about ingredients and skin? And that market, when John and I went out there, when we launched, we spent a week touring and we were all over London and Manchester and key cities, very educated in ingredients and skincare, and really thinks about it in a slightly different way than the average US customer. And so like that was fascinating. And where we are today is we want to continue to be at the forefront of innovation, but also really relying on the science, the data, the high performance products, on continuing to build the brand. And we want to make sure that not that we have blinders on, but all of these distractions and going viral and all of these like enticing things that can take your brand into these various directions that we're really sticking to our guns as far as like we're a product led company that solves skin concerns for women at an unbeatable value. And the science is there and the data is there. And so continuing to expand on that.
Yep. I think a lot of those kind of qualities or criteria when you were talking about heritage brand, like the longevity, the being a household name, right? Being in the vernacular, being accessible to people again, but over the long term is those are criteria that we look in our data as well. Brands that have staying power
Mhm.
have great creator retention. Creators continue talking about the brand and their products month on month, year on year. The community grows over time, right? It's really interesting that there is kind of a pattern for success, especially sustainable success.
Mhm.
It's much easier to kind of launch hot and taper off than it is to build a groundswell of support over time. We see a lot of those patterns in your data.
Thank
So
you.
congratulations on that. I did want to talk a little bit about creator retention. It is a huge piece of
Mhm.
success. I think probably most mission critical for brands today, especially in highly competitive industries and verticals. I mean, beauty is highly competitive. Skincare within that growing at 2x the rate of color cosmetics right now, highly competitive. And so understanding kind of what it takes to build that lifetime value and build for longevity is something I think a lot of our customers are trying to answer today. So my question to you and all of that is how do you approach creator retention? What does it look like to you to kind of nurture a community over time? And how do you balance that retention with growth at the same time?
Excellent question. And I'd say this is not an easy answer. And the one thing I'll say, my piece of advice for those starting out and younger brands is like be patient. It takes time. And it's what you said, fast up, fast down, and really make sure that you're focusing on your core business, your core audience, your core brand DNA. On the creator retention piece, we are fortunate where we have incredible retention stats as far as the creators that we work with over and over and over again. And it is something that has taken a lot of work and a lot of time and a team of people. And shout out to our marketing team where it's a cultivated relationship. And in the beginning, just like any brand starting out, unless you're a celebrity backed brand, you're going to have to send a lot of product to people and figure out how to stand out and work with creators on a paid basis, on a hybrid basis, or whatever it is. And so there are partners that we've worked with for years that we do work on a paid basis. However, the amount of content and how they use the brand and how they showcase the brand on all their organic channels like far exceeds any kind of commitment. And so we know they love the product, they use the product. And then I think that when you think of creators as like a transactional entity, they know they're a transactional entity. When you do the extra work and you go the extra mile and you check in and you make sure that they're restocked on the product that you want them to talk about or the product that they want to talk about and they use on a regular basis, and you make sure that you really treat them like community members, like an extension of the team, they also feel that. And so we make sure that we have those touch points. Something that we've never really had the budget or want to put the budget in are these like really extraordinary mailers where like it's about unboxing this mailer that costs God knows how much, and then they get tossed into the trash, which is like makes me cry inside. And so that's something that we've never focused on. It's really just about the product. And again, it comes back to the product. Like our DNA is not about these extraordinary, crazy mailers. It's about product that delivers that you can use time and time again. And so it's understanding your creators' needs, understanding what they're actually using every day, really understanding their feedback. Don't send people things that they're saying they don't love. So, like, listen to them, watch their content, really understand their lifestyle, understand their routine. If they're saying, I'm making this up, I've got this cleanser in my routine that's been my ride or die for 5 years, I will never change it. Don't try to get them to change their cleanser. Like, listen to them, really understand what it is that is going to be helpful or useful to them. And so it's that. I know it's really hard to do because there's so many and there's new creators popping up every second, but treat them like community members, treat them like team members, ask them for feedback, check in with them, don't make it transactional. And if they stopped using a product or if they had a negative experience, also like find out why and find out what's going on and did something happen. And it is a labor of love. There's no easy trick. Look at the data, really understand like how often do they post and really use platforms like Creator IQ and everything that you offer to intimately understand the patterns.
But close the feedback loop. It kind of comes back again to listening and
You
keeping
have
that
to listen.
conversation open.
And also understand that, like, this is their career. I think what we often lose focus on is these creators and the content that they're creating, and whatever percent of it is sponsored, not sponsored, or whatever it is, like whatever partnerships they have going on, long term, short term. This is their career. You cannot shade them for posting sponsored content, because just like you and I have careers and jobs, this is their career. This is what they've chosen. And it's incredibly difficult. And so, like, thumbs up to them, like, because it's hard what they do. And so just be mindful of that too. And don't try to put these like handcuffs on them where like you can't post about this if you're posting about my brand. So just like be partners, and they'll be good partners. And then the other thing I'll say is there's certain creators that maybe we worked with a year or 2 years ago on a partnership basis or whatever it is, and they're continuously talking about in beauty. So one, they love the brand, they love the product, and like recognize that and make sure that they know how grateful you are, and make sure that they feel like VIPs and they feel like they're at the top of your list. And so just like build that connection.
Yep. I love that. I do think it's really interesting. As a founder, I've always seen creators as kind of brand and business owners. So I would imagine there is a lot of shared experience there. My closing question is going to be, what is one piece of advice as a founder, like your experience as a founder, that you would offer up to anyone looking to start their own brand, or as a creator looking to build their career?
I could probably speak to the start your own brand a little bit better than a creator, because I always say like I'm much more a behind the scenes founder than in front of the camera founder. I'd say really don't discount experience. You obviously need to have a passion and a love and an affinity to whatever business, product, or service that you are starting, but you need to have experience in the space. You need to have that playbook to know how to deal with difficult situations or great situations and big opportunities that come your way. And so it goes back to, 40 with a plan versus 25 with a dream. The dream's incredible, but know how to execute the plan. And if you don't know how to execute all parts of the plan, surround yourself with people and a network that do, because that's going to be your way to success. I'd say like that's probably been like the biggest contributor to Jen and my success, is really our experience and knowing what we're doing and also knowing what we don't know. And on the creator piece, find your thing. Are you funny? Are you lifestyle driven? Are you a derm and you're really science focused and it's really about unlocking science and that element of the category to your audience? Like, what is it that people are going to come to you to get from you, and be consistent with it? I was reading something the other day about like how your brain processes consistency or inconsistency. And so when people are behaving in an inconsistent manner, it does get your attention, but then it also turns into a negative anxiety where you're like, no, I thought you were this, but now you're telling me you're this. And so there could be something in there that could be disruptive and viral. However, if your content is consistently kind of one bucket or something consistent, I think your audience will like find peace in that, and they'll continue to come to you for that because it'll be that consistent peace of mind.
I love that. I'm a big proponent of peace of mind and more strong women in their 40s with a plan. If we see more strong women in their 40s starting businesses, being successful, I am very happy about that. So thank you so much for being here. Congratulations on all your success. And thank you for sharing all of your experience and thoughts today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been lovely.
Be a friend, tell a friend, and subscribe. Earned by CreatorIQ. CreatorIQ is your all-in-one solution to grow, manage, scale, and measure your influencer marketing program. Ready to unlock the power of the creator economy? Get started with a demo today at CreatorIQ.com.